In the summer of 1924, 5 men climbed the slopes of Mount St. Helens in Washington state, chasing rumors of gold and solitude. What they found instead was something watching them from the trees. Not a bear, not a man, but something tall, powerful, and intelligent enough to plan an attack. For one entire night, these men would be trapped inside a remote cabin as unseen creatures surrounded them, throwing stones, screaming into the darkness, and trying to break their way inside. This is the chilling true story of the Ape Canyon Incident, one of the earliest and most violent Bigfoot encounters ever recorded. The year is 1924. The men were Fred Beck, Roy LeMay, Marion Smith, Ape Canyon prospector crew, hard men used to isolation. They weren't thrill seekers. They weren't hunting monsters. They were gold prospectors, working a remote canyon on the slopes of Mount St. Helens, an area already known among locals for strange sounds and shadowy figures. They built a small wooden cabin, tucked deep into the wilderness. No roads, no nearby towns, just forest and silence. At least, it used to be silent. One afternoon, Fred Beck went out alone to check mining claims. That's when he saw it. Standing across a ravine, a massive, upright creature, covered in dark hair, 7 feet tall, broad shoulders, long arms. It wasn't running. It wasn't hiding. It was watching him. Beck raised his rifle and fired. The creature staggered, then disappeared into the forest. Beck would later say something chilling. "I shot it, and it didn't fall like a man or an animal." That night, the forest changed. The men heard whistling sounds echoing through the canyon, high-pitched, deliberate, almost like signals. Then came the screams, deep, guttural howls that rolled through the trees, bouncing off the canyon walls. They weren't animal noises. They sounded angry, and they sounded coordinated. Shortly after midnight, it started. A rock smashed into the cabin wall. Then another. Then another. Large stones, some weighing over 50 pounds, slammed into the roof and walls. The men grabbed rifles and fired blindly into the darkness. But the rocks didn't stop. For hours, the cabin was bombarded. The creatures screamed and shrieked as stones rained down, shaking the entire structure. This wasn't random. This was an attack. At one point, the men heard heavy footsteps on the roof. Something was walking on top of the cabin. The boards bent under the weight. Claws, or fingers, scraped against the wood. One creature tried to tear the roof apart. The men fired straight upward. The footsteps retreated, but the screaming intensified. The siege lasted until dawn. The men were trapped, exhausted, terrified. No sleep, no escape. Only the constant knowledge that something intelligent was outside, waiting. Then, silence. As the sun rose, the forest went quiet. Too quiet. When the men stepped outside, they found massive footprints surrounding the cabin, rocks too heavy for one man to lift, damage high on the walls, far above human reach. The tracks showed multiple creatures. They weren't alone. They never were. The men didn't stay. They packed what they could and fled the canyon. Fred Beck would later swear that the creatures watched them leave from the tree line. Silent, still, unmoving. When the story reached newspapers, it was ridiculed. Headlines mocked them. The creatures were dubbed ape men. But something strange happened. Other locals came forward. Hunters, loggers, mountaineers, all describing the same thing. When the story reached newspapers, it was ridiculed. Headlines mocked them. The creatures were dubbed Ape Men, but something strange happened. Other locals came forward, hunters, loggers, mountaineers, all describing the same thing. Ape Canyon wasn't just another sighting. It introduced something new: group behavior, coordinated attacks, tactical intelligence, decades before Bigfoot entered pop culture. This case already suggested something far more complex than a wandering animal. Skeptics argue bears, but bears don't throw stones accurately for hours. Bears don't surround cabins, and bears don't scream. Like that. To believers, Ape Canyon remains one of the strongest early indicators that something else shares our wilderness. Mount St. Helens would later erupt in 1980, reshaping the land. But Ape Canyon is still there, quiet, watching, and some locals say, on certain nights, you can still hear screams echoing through the canyon.